often view the Middle Ages through the lens of knightly novels and Hollywood films. It is a world of majestic castles, brilliant tournaments, and noble kings. We imagine a life full of adventure and romance, where every day is a new challenge to be overcome with honor and valor. But what if the reality was completely different? What if real life was far from these beautiful myths? Archaeological finds are silent witnesses to history. They do not lie or embellish. They tell us how people ate, what they wore, how they built their homes, and how they dealt with disease. The truth they reveal is often much harsher and more mundane than we can imagine. Life was a constant struggle for survival, where every day was filled with hard work and deprivation. It is only thanks to these discoveries that we can truly understand how people lived in that era. Watch the video to the end, and you will learn how even the most ordinary clay plate can tell a whole story about social hierarchy, and a pair of old boots can reveal trade routes that no historian has ever written about. We are used to thinking that medieval cuisine was simple and coarse, consisting mainly of bread and meat. But archaeological excavations at the sites of former villages and towns reveal a much more complex picture. For example, food remains found in York indicate that people ate many more types of fish than previously thought. This was not only river fish, but also sea fish, which indicates a developed trade and the existence of roads by which it was transported deep into the country. Surprisingly, their diet even included fish species that were exotic to England, which indicates international trade links. In addition, bones of birds and wild animals have been found, indicating that hunting was an important part of their lives, not just entertainment for the nobility. This shatters our preconceptions about nutrition and shows that people were more resourceful and inventive than we think. Archaeology, like detective work, collects clues to reconstruct a picture of the past. In the case of food, these clues are animal bones, fish scales, grain remains, and even marks on pottery. Analysis of these finds allows us to draw some striking conclusions. For example, cod and herring bones have been found in settlements located far from the sea, indicating the existence of a developed food delivery system. Dried and salted fish, which was popular at the time, could travel long distances, making it accessible to a wide range of people. In addition to fish, other equally interesting remains have been found. For example, in one of the villages, archaeologists discovered a large number of oyster and mussel shells. This suggests that seafood was an important part of the diet and that people knew how to obtain it. The bones of various species of birds, from wild geese to partridges, were also found, indicating that bird hunting was widespread and productive. In addition, analysis of grain remains found in barns and kitchens shows that people grew not only barley and rye, but also other, less common crops. For example, traces of millet and oats were found, indicating a diversity of agricultural crops. Remains of legumes and nuts were also found, which served as an important source of protein and fat. All this shows that medieval cuisine was much more varied and nutritious than we tend to think. But the biggest surprise came when archaeologists found the bones of wild animals such as deer, wild boar, and even bears in the graves of ordinary peasants. This debunks the myth that hunting was the exclusive privilege of the nobility. The findings show that ordinary people also hunted to feed themselves and their families. Of course, hunting large animals was more rare and required greater effort. All these discoveries give us a more complete and accurate picture of life in the Middle Ages. We see that people were not just passive victims of circumstances, but active participants in their own lives, using all the resources available to them to survive. They were inventive, intelligent, and resilient. What else do you think, besides exotic fish, might have been in the diet of a medieval Englishman, and what findings prove that they were excellent hunters? Write your guesses in the comments, and we'll discuss them in the next video.
Tell me what adventures you wish to read about for our next chapter.
Ceramic artifacts are among the most common finds in medieval layers. They not only show how people stored and prepared food, but also tell us about social and economic processes. For example, in some settlements, archaeologists found rough, handmade pottery, while in others they found thin, glazed ceramics produced in workshops. This indicates that society was divided and not everyone could afford high-quality products. In addition, analysis of the clay used to make the pottery allows us to determine where it was produced and trace trade routes. For example, samples brought from Germany and France have been found, indicating extensive international trade links. The fragments of jugs and pots found also show what drinks and foods were popular. Some contain traces of wine and beer, while others contain vegetable oils and grains. This gives us an idea of what people drank and how they stored their food. For archaeologists, ceramics are a real-time capsule that can tell us about entire eras. Every tile found, every pottery shard, is not just an everyday object, but part of a large, complex history. For example, traces of soot and smoke were found on some shards, indicating that the dishes were used for cooking over an open fire. Other finds, on the contrary, are clean, which suggests that they were used to store food or water. This seemingly insignificant difference allows us to understand how people organize their daily lives. The study of pottery workshops, which were also discovered by archaeologists, gives us an idea of the technological level of the time. These workshops contained kilns, tools, and defective items. This suggests that pottery production was well established and that the craftsmen were highly skilled. However, even within a single settlement, the quality of pottery varied greatly. In the homes of noble people, thin-walled jugs decorated with patterns and glaze were found, while in the huts of simple peasants, there were rough and uneven pots made without any special frills. This difference is direct evidence of social stratification in medieval society. Pottery also helps us trace population migrations. For example, in some regions of England, where Viking invasions were known to have taken place, archaeologists found pottery characteristic of Scandinavia. This shows that the conquerors brought with them not only weapons and traditions, but also their everyday objects. Such finds help us reconstruct the chronology of events and understand how cultural exchange took place. In addition to pottery, other fired clay items were found: toys, animal figurines, and even musical instruments. This suggests that despite the harsh living conditions, people found time for creativity and entertainment. These finds add humanity to the picture of the Middle Ages, showing that people were not just machines for survival, but also had their own interests and hobbies. Thus, ceramics are not just clay, they are stone chronicles that hold thousands of stories about life, trade, culture, and social relations. Each find is a new chapter in the book of history that allows us to see how people lived, suffered, and rejoiced in that distant era. Just think about it. These clay pots and plates have outlived their owners by hundreds of years. If they could talk, what would they tell us about a life full of hardship and hard work? What was more important to them, a rich harvest or a peaceful night? We'll talk about that soon. Archaeology also helps us understand how people work the land. Finds related to agriculture are extremely rare, but they are invaluable. For example, in Kent, the remains of an ancient plow were found, which was much lighter and more efficient than previously thought. This discovery shows that agricultural technology was more advanced and that people were able to cultivate large areas of land. Other finds, such as grains and seeds, allow us to determine what crops were grown and how fertile the land was. Soil analysis in different locations shows that farmers use crop rotation and fertilize the soil. Archaeological excavations at former fields and farms reveal amazing details about how medieval people struggled to survive, relying on their knowledge and skills in agriculture. Seemingly insignificant finds such as grain imprints on clay shards or the remains of ancient tools allow us to reconstruct a picture of life and work on the land. For example, analysis of paleosols, or ancient layers of soil, shows that farmers did not simply sow grain, but actively managed soil fertility using various methods, including crop rotation. This method, in which different crops were grown on the same field in different years, allowed nutrients to be restored to the soil and increased crop yields. In addition, evidence of manure use as fertilizer has been found. The remains of organic materials in the soil, as well as chemical composition analysis, indicate that people knew about the importance of fertilizers for plant growth. This was vital as the fertility of the land directly affected the survival of the community. A poor harvest meant famine, while a good harvest meant prosperity. Finds related to tools are of particular interest to archaeologists. Although the wooden parts of plows and harrows have not survived, metal tips and blades give us an idea of how advanced agricultural technology was. The finds in Kent, which we have already mentioned, showed that plows were lighter than we thought, which made them more maneuverable and allowed them to cultivate even stony soils. This suggests that people adapted to local conditions and developed their own technologies to cope with difficulties. The study of plant remains also provides us with a wealth of information. Seeds of wild grasses were found in fields where cereals were grown, which could have been used as animal feed or for human consumption. This suggests that people used every resource available to them. Remains of legumes such as peas and beans have also been found, which not only served as a source of protein, but also helped enrich the soil with nitrogen, which was very important for agriculture. Taken together, these findings show that medieval farmers were not simply ignorant people, but inventive and hardworking workers who had a deep knowledge of their land. They understood how natural cycles worked and used this knowledge to survive. Farming was not just a job, but a science that they mastered in order to survive. These findings add something more to our understanding of the Middle Ages than just hard work. They show that people were intelligent and resourceful, and that their struggle for survival was complex and multifaceted. Archaeological studies of human remains reveal many secrets about health in the Middle Ages. For example, bone analysis can determine what injuries and diseases people suffered during their lifetime. Skeletons with traces of healed fractures have been found, suggesting that medical care was available, albeit primitive. In addition, teeth often show signs of tooth decay and abscesses, indicating poor hygiene and nutrition. This proves that disease was a constant companion in life. Archaeology, by studying human remains, allows us to glimpse the most intimate aspects of medieval life: health and suffering. Bones and teeth are a kind of chronicle recording all the illnesses, injuries, and hardships experienced during a person's lifetime. Analysis of skeletons found in mass graves has shown that fractures were common. But surprisingly, many of them had healed, indicating that people received some kind of medical care. These were not operations in the modern sense, but rather bone setting, splinting, and herbal compresses. This shows that even in those days, there were people who possessed primitive but useful medical knowledge. The teeth of medieval people often show signs of severe tooth decay, abscesses, and even tooth loss. This is a direct consequence of poor nutrition and lack of hygiene. A diet consisting mainly of coarse bread and grains contributed to tooth wear, and the absence of sugar and other sweets, oddly enough, did not protect against tooth decay. This proves that even without modern technology, people suffered from toothache and gum problems that could lead to serious infections. The bones also often show signs of rickets caused by a lack of vitamin D and calcium. This was especially common among city dwellers who spent a lot of time in the shade and did not get enough sunlight. Rickets led to bone deformities, which made people weak and vulnerable. Another common problem was arthritis. Constant heavy physical labor, working in the fields, and carrying heavy loads led to joint wear and tear, and many people suffered from joint pain at a young age. Bones can also tell us about how people fought infections. For example, marks on bones can show if someone had osteomyelitis, which is an infection of the bone tissue. These infections were often deadly, but some people survived, and their bones still have marks from the fight. Traces of tuberculosis, which was common in densely populated cities and villages, have also been found on remains. Taken together, these findings show that life in the Middle Ages was a constant test of endurance. People did not have access to modern medicines and technologies, and their bodies had to cope with disease and injury on their own. It was a society where only the strongest survived, and every day was filled with a struggle for health. But what else can tell us about life and death? The answer will surprise you. Studying skeletons has certainly told us about diseases, but do you know what else can tell us much more about life and death? Medieval shoes. Let's talk about that next. Shoes and clothing in the Middle Ages, as today, were an indicator of social status. Archaeological excavations in London and other large cities have uncovered many leather items, including shoes. For example, boots decorated with embroidery have been found, indicating the high skill of the craftsman. However, most of the finds are simple, roughly sewn shoes that wore out quickly. This proves once again that the majority of the population was poor. Clothing has hardly survived, but it can be judged by the finds of buckles, buttons, and pins. They are made of various materials from simple bone to richly decorated copper, which also indicates social stratification. Archaeological finds related to shoes and clothing provide us with a unique opportunity to glimpse into the everyday lives of people and understand how they felt and how they perceived themselves in society. Footwear, being one of the most frequently used items, provides us with a wealth of information. Finds in marshy areas and at the bottom of wells, where organic materials are well preserved, have revealed entire boots and shoes. They show that footwear was mainly made of leather, and its quality depended greatly on the social status of the owner. For example, elegant shoes with embroidery and leather patterns have been found in wealthy urban neighborhoods, indicating the existence of fashion and a high level of craftsmanship. These shoes were expensive and only affordable to the nobility and wealthy townspeople. At the same time, in areas where simple craftsmen and peasants lived, rough, poorly sewn boots were found that wore out quickly. Such boots often had many patches, which indicates that people wore them until they fell apart. As for clothing, it has been preserved much worse, as fabric decomposes quickly. But we can judge it by the buckles, buttons, pins, and other accessories that were used to fasten clothing. For example, bronze, silver, and gold buckles decorated with precious stones have been found, which were only available to the nobility. At the same time, ordinary people wore clothes fastened with bone or wooden buttons. These accessories can also tell us about trade. For example, jewelry made from materials that were not available in England has been found, indicating extensive trade links with other countries. A fibula, clasp, characteristic of Scandinavia, was found in one of the ports, suggesting trade with the Vikings. Analysis of fabric remnants, which are sometimes found, shows that wool and linen were the main materials used for clothing. Wool was particularly popular because it retained heat well and was readily available, as there were many sheep in England. Linen was used for light summer clothing. Clothes were often dyed in bright colors, which also indicated the wealth of the owner, as natural dyes were expensive. All these findings taken together show that clothing and footwear were not just everyday items, but a reflection of the social structure of society. They help people identify each other and understand who they were dealing with, a wealthy townsperson or a simple peasant. It was a whole system of signs and symbols that existed in the Middle Ages, and which we can only understand thanks to archaeological finds. Archaeological finds related to construction allow us to recreate the appearance of medieval dwellings. The foundations of houses, remains of walls and roofs made of reeds and straw, testify to the simplicity and practicality of the buildings. They were warm, but often had small windows which made them dark and stuffy. Crafts also left their mark on history. Blacksmith tools, horns, and metal products such as knives, axes, and jewelry have been found. For example, an entire blacksmith settlement was found in Yorkshire, where archaeologists discovered hundreds of tools and finished products. This suggests that crafts were well developed and played an important role in the economy. Archaeological excavations give us a unique opportunity to glimpse into the everyday life of medieval people, including their homes. The foundations of houses and remains of walls allow us to reconstruct their size and layout. Most houses were simple, single-room structures made of wood and clay, with roofs of reeds or straw. They were practical and functional, but not particularly comfortable. Inside it was dark, as the windows were small and often had no glass, only shutters that closed against the wind and rain. Smoke from the hearth in the center of the room escaped through a hole in the roof, but often filled the entire room, making the air stifling. Despite their simplicity, these houses were warm, which was very important for survival during the cold season. The walls, made of clay and wicker, retained heat well. The floors were earthen, covered with a layer of straw that was changed once a year. People slept, ate, and worked on these floors. As for crafts, they were the basis of the economy. Archaeological finds related to crafts are extremely important. They show what tools and technologies people used. For example, bellows, anvils, hammers, and tongs were found at the site of blacksmith workshops. This allows us to reconstruct the process of making metal objects, from simple nails to complex swords. Blacksmiths were among the most respected craftsmen, as their work was vital to society. They made tools, weapons, and even jewelry. Leatherworking was also well developed. Leatherworking tools such as knives, scrapers, and awls were found at the excavation site, as well as finished products such as shoes, belts, and bags.
Yes, my lady.
These finds show that the craftsmen were skilled and knew how to work with this material. Evidence of pottery work has also been found. Kilns for firing ceramics, as well as potter's wheels and modeling tools, were discovered at the site of workshops. The defective items found give us an idea of how the production process worked and what mistakes the craftsmen made. Taken together, all these finds show that medieval society was full of hard work and ingenuity. People did not just exist, they built, created, and developed their technologies. Archaeology thus shows us that life in the Middle Ages was not monotonous. It was filled with work, crafts, and creativity. Every house, every piece of pottery, every tool tells us its own story. These finds allow us to see that people were not just part of a crowd, but individuals who contributed to the development of society. If you had the choice between living in a dark house without windows or cleaning a medieval toilet, which would you choose? We will find out what medieval people chose very soon. Archaeological finds related to domestic life tell us about everyday life. For example, wooden spoons, bowls, and even toys have been found. This shows that despite all the difficulties, people sought to make their lives more comfortable and pleasant. Spindles and weaving combs found in the remains of houses indicate that spinning and weaving were widespread, and many families made their own clothes. Archaeology allows us to delve into the very essence of everyday life, into a world that was not recorded in chronicles and annals. Finds related to everyday life seem insignificant, but it is precisely these finds that tell us how people lived, worked, and relaxed. Wooden spoons, bowls, and other household items found in the remains of houses show that life was simple but comfortable. These items were handmade, and each one bears the warmth of the craftsman's hands. Spinning wheels and weaving combs are also important finds. These items indicate that fabric production was part of everyday life. Women and families spun woolen flax and then wove them into cloth for clothing. In addition, archaeologists have found rarer but no less valuable artifacts. For example, the remains of toys such as clay whistles and small animal figurines have been discovered. These finds add warmth and humanity to the picture of the Middle Ages. They show that despite all the difficulties and hardships, people had room for joy and creativity. Toys could be made of wood, clay, or even bone, and they served to entertain children. Another important group of finds are tools for housework. For example, knives, awls, and needles were found, which were used for sewing and repairing clothes. Stone millstones for grinding grain and clay pots for storing food were also discovered. These items show that people were self-sufficient and could provide themselves with everything they needed. Metal objects such as keys and locks were also found. They indicate that people cared about their safety and the security of their property. The keys found often had intricate designs, which indicates the high skill of the blacksmiths. Thus, archaeological finds related to domestic life allow us to see that life in the Middle Ages was complex and multifaceted. People did not just exist, they created, worked, and strove for comfort. Every find, whether it is a simple spoon or an ornate spindle whorl, tells us its own story. These artifacts, which hold memories of the past, allow us to take a fresh look at this era. They show that people were just like us. They loved, created, fought for survival, and tried to make their lives a little better. These details, gathered bit by bit, create a vivid and truthful portrait of an era far removed from myths and fairy tales.
I will keep this close to my heart.
And I, yours.
We can judge the relationships between people in the Middle Ages based on indirect findings. For example, jewelry and objects that may have been gifts have been found, suggesting the existence of love and affection. Objects found in graves, placed alongside the remains, also indicate that people cared for their loved ones. Archaeology provides us with a unique insight into family relationships in the Middle Ages, which are generally believed to have been based solely on economic and social considerations. However, the findings show that human feelings such as love, affection, and care played an equally important role. For example, paired burials are often found, where a man and a woman are laid to rest together, often holding hands. This may indicate that they were a couple and that they were buried with special respect as spouses. Such findings contradict the idea that marriages were exclusively transactions between families. In addition, items that were probably gifts have been found in burials. These could be rings, bracelets, amulets, or other personal items that are believed to have been given by loved ones. These items found next to the remains suggest that people valued their relationships and wanted their loved ones to keep these symbols even after death. For example, a ring with an inscription was found in one of the burials, indicating the existence of personal symbolism and the significance of gifts. Archaeology also allows us to learn about the care given to the sick and wounded. Analysis of the skeletons we mentioned earlier shows that many people who suffered serious injuries, such as broken hips or spines, survived. This suggests that someone cared for them, helped them with food and water while they recovered. Without this care, they would have simply died. This refutes the myth that in the Middle Ages, everyone was out for themselves. On the contrary, the community and family played a huge role in survival. Children's graves also provide us with a lot of information about family relationships. Toys, amulets, or other items are often found in them, which are believed to have been placed there by parents as a farewell gift. This suggests that children were important to families and that their loss was a great sorrow. In one of the graves, the remains of a small wooden whistle were found, adding a touch of humanity and tenderness to the picture. In addition, archaeological finds related to marriage and marital relations are also noteworthy. For example, the remains of marriage contracts on parchment have been found, which are, of course, written sources. But their location in certain places allows us to understand where people kept their important documents. In addition, personal items that may have belonged to spouses were found in the homes of the nobility, indicating the existence of shared living and personal space even in those times. All these findings taken together show that medieval people were just like us. They loved, cared for their loved ones, mourned their losses, and enjoyed life. Their relationships were complex and multifaceted, based not only on social norms, but also on deep human feelings. Archaeology allows us to see this invisible side of history and understand that in the Middle Ages, despite all the difficulties, people remained human. The everyday problems of medieval people were far from those we face today. Archaeological excavations show that people constantly struggled with rodents and rats. Rodent bones found in settlements indicate that they were a real scourge, destroying grain and food supplies. Archaeology provides us with a unique and sometimes unpleasant glimpse into the everyday problems of medieval people. Unlike the global events recorded by chroniclers, these problems were part of everyday life and affected everyone. One of the biggest and most constant threats people faced was rodents. Rodents were not just unpleasant neighbors. They were a real disaster. They invaded homes and barns, destroying stocks of grain, flour, and other food. In conditions where every harvest was worth its weight in gold, such a loss could mean starvation for an entire family or community. Rat bones found in grain stores indicate that people were unable to protect their supplies effectively. It was a constant battle in which humans usually lost. In addition to rodents, people struggled with other pests. For example, traces of insects were found in the remains of houses, which also destroyed food and contaminated it. The lack of airtight packaging and refrigerators made food storage a very difficult task. People used various methods, such as drying, salting, and smoking, but even these could not completely protect food from pests. Another important problem was the fight against dirt and waste. In the Middle Ages, there was no centralized cleaning system. Waste, both food and human, was thrown directly onto the streets or into nearby bodies of water. Archaeological excavations in cities show that the streets were filled with garbage, which created unsanitary conditions and contributed to the spread of disease. This was so widespread that some laws of the time explicitly prohibited the disposal of waste on the streets, but judging by the findings, these laws were not enforced. Lost or discarded items are often found in the remains of dwellings, which can tell us about everyday problems. For example, needles and pins found indicate that people were constantly repairing their clothes. Broken tools and dishes indicate that household items were fragile and broke easily. This was part of life, and people had to constantly repair and replace their belongings.
We must make it last.
In addition to the above, archaeological research reveals other less obvious but equally important problems. For example, analysis of teeth and bones shows that people often suffered from nutrient deficiencies. This suggests that their diet was poor and monotonous, making them vulnerable to disease. Traces of strenuous physical labor have also been found, such as joint deformities and bone wear, indicating that life was hard and required enormous physical effort. These findings refute romanticized notions of the Middle Ages and show that life was filled with a struggle for survival. Thus, archaeological finds show that life in the Middle Ages was filled with small but constant problems. Rodents, insects, dirt, and broken things were all part of everyday life. These problems may seem insignificant, but together they made life very difficult. They were invisible enemies that constantly undermined people's health and well-being. It is only thanks to archaeology that we can truly appreciate how difficult life was in that era and how people coped with all these challenges. Trade played an important role in medieval society, and archaeology confirms this. Coins and scales found at archaeological sites indicate a developed trading system and the existence of markets where people could exchange goods. Different types of coins found in the same area suggest that trade was not only local, but also international. Archaeological finds related to trade and economics allow us to see how medieval society functioned at the most basic level. Coins are one of the most valuable pieces of evidence. They are found in hoards and burials and simply in fields. Analysis of the metal composition and minting allows us to determine where and when a coin was produced. In addition to coins, archaeologists find scales and weights that were used to weigh goods and precious metals. These finds suggest that trade was fair and regulated, and that people used standardized measures of weight. Scales found in different places often have different designs, which may indicate regional characteristics. These finds allow us to reconstruct trade routes and understand which goods were most popular. For example, amphorae from Spain have been found in York, which were most likely used to transport wine or olive oil. The remains of markets are also valuable archaeological sites. Objects found on their territory, such as pottery shards, animal bones, and various tools, allow us to understand what goods were sold and bought. For example, remains found in one settlement indicate that the market traded not only food, but also handicrafts such as leather goods, metalwork, and fabric. All these findings, taken together, show that medieval society was much more complex and developed than we tend to think. Trade was its lifeblood, connecting cities and villages, countries and continents. It provided people with essential goods and facilitated the exchange of ideas and technologies. Thus, archaeology does not simply find old objects. It recreates entire worlds in which people traded, exchanged, and built their economies. It was a world in which every commodity had its own history, and every coin could tell a story of a long journey from one country to another. These findings show that survival in the Middle Ages was not only a struggle against nature, but also a complex economic process that required intelligence, ingenuity, and the ability to negotiate.
Make the market as much as grain.
To truly understand the past, we must strip away the legends and find the truth.
We have seen that archaeological finds give us a much more complete and honest picture of the Middle Ages than any myths or legends. They show that life was filled with hard work and deprivation, but at the same time it was full of humanity and the desire for a better future. Archaeology, like a detective, collects clues to reconstruct the picture of the past. These clues, our bones, coins, tools, tell the truth without any embellishment. They show us that survival was a constant struggle, but at the same time, they testify to the strength of the human spirit, its ingenuity, and its ability to adapt to any conditions. This is a story about how people, despite all obstacles, built their lives and created a society that ultimately became the foundation for our modern world. What else would you like to know about the lives of medieval people? Write about it in the comments. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our new videos.